in a past that is now lost forever. There was a time when the land was sacred and the ancient ones were as one with it. A time when only the children of the Great Spirit were here to light their fires in these places with no boundaries. When the forests were as thick as the fur of the winter bear. When a warrior could walk from horizon to horizon on the backs of the buffalo. When the deserts were in bloom and the streams pure as freshly fallen snow. In that time when there were only simple ways, I saw with my heart the conflicts to come. And whether it was to be for good or bad, what was certain was that there would be change.
Of all the events that contributed to the making of the American West, perhaps none is grander or more dramatic than the California Gold Rush. In 1849, the news of the discovery of gold in a land barely known to most Americans set off a stampede of cross-continental immigration that in many ways has never stopped. But even if most of the 49ers never struck it rich, they did share a fortune in adventure.
A frenzy seized my soul. Piles of gold rose up before me. Castles of marble, thousands of slaves, myriads of fair virgins contending with each other for my love were among the fancies of my fevered imagination. The Rothschilds, Gerards, and Astors appeared to be but poor people. In short, I had a very violent attack of the gold fever. A 49er from Bancroft's History of California.
This is what caused gold fever. This is what made them crazy. This is why they were willing to get in a wagon and spend 4 or 5 months coming overland. This is why they were willing to get in the ship of anything that would sail and come around the Horn and spend as much as 8 months at sea. This is what made them crazy.
The California Gold Rush was the first great mining strike in the West. It brought an enormous population into California, set up California statehood, caused the political forces within the nation to deal with the slavery question in the Compromise of 1850, and this helped bring on the Civil War. And while at the same time, of course, adding greatly to the wealth of the Republic.
The Gold Rush was a unique experience and a unique national event. It involved the American people, all the 30 states, as no event except the Civil War involved the nation.
As is often the case in history, major events occur in the most unlikely places. The California Gold Rush is a glittering example.
California, before the gold rush, was a very sleepy, pastoral community. Very few Americans, most of whom were married into Mexican and Spanish families, ranches, a few presidios, a few small towns, a chain of missions, and it was primarily in decay.
The frontier was far-flung and rustic, not very sophisticated, but there on their ranchos and in the various pueblos, life was relatively easy. They had vast herds of cattle, which they skinned and bartered with Yankee traders for all the fineries and manufactured goods that New England society could offer.
San Francisco Bay, the finest harbor in the world, was virtually devoid of anything. It had been a port of call for whalers, but it was slow. Nothing was happening.
Trying to make something happen was a German-Swiss immigrant with big plans and a fondness for military attire, John Sutter.
John Sutter's a very complex person. He had very strong ambitions and goals. His pitch was that he wanted to develop a rancho in Northern California. The Mexican government agreed to that. He built a fort. He ended up with more cannons than the Mexican or Spanish government had here. He set himself up in a very autocratic sort of agricultural empire. He felt that he would offer a new Switzerland, a place for settlers to come to, and he would control that situation.
To provide lumber for his agricultural empire, Sutter hired James Marshall, a carpenter from New Jersey, to supervise construction of a sawmill on the American River.
And there on the morning of the 24th of January, 1848, he was inspecting the mill race in the glint of the morning sun over the Sierras.
My eyes were caught by something shining in the bottom of a ditch. I reached my hand down and picked it up, and it made my heart thump, for I was certain it was gold. The piece was about half the size and shape of a pea. Then I saw another. James Marshall, January 1848.
In the diary of one of the mill workers, Marshall's discovery got less mention than the crew's feud with the cook.
The carpenters building Sutter's mill didn't know if it was just a sprinkle or if it was really a mother lode. Actually didn't think about it as being anything more than a sprinkle. They simply looked for it on Sundays on their days off.
Even so, Sutter swore everyone to secrecy about the discovery.
He was afraid that if the word got out, then he would lose the workers and he would not be able to continue his business. So they attempted to keep it secret.
Only 9 days after the discovery of gold, the Mexican War ended. As part of the peace agreement, the United States acquired California.
The discovery of gold cemented what was that victory and that conquest and that addition of the west coast of California.
There's an enormous irony in the fact that the Spanish Empire in North America was based upon the search for mineral wealth. But here they were, sitting in California for all that time, and they never found the greatest mother lode of gold of them all.
Meanwhile, Sutter's secret had become too good to keep. Rumors of a gold find at his sawmill in Coloma Valley had begun to spread.
Gold is a fever. Pretty soon, some samples started to show up, and then fever gets hot.
There's a wonderful account in Walter Colton's diary in Monterey of a woman who had a boarding house there, and he said that she closed up her boarding house and left for the mines without even getting the rent from her boarders. This was how everybody behaved in California.
And very, very quickly, growing cities like San Francisco started to become depopulated cities.
And of course, you couldn't get this news back east very quickly, and it wasn't until a tea caddy filled with 230 ounces of evidence was taken back east, and in December of 1848, when President Polk announced the extent of the gold and how rich the fields were.
The accounts of the abundance of gold in California are of such extraordinary character as would scarcely command belief were they not corroborated by authentic reports of officers in the public service. President James Polk, December 1848.
If the president says there is gold in California, there is gold in California. The rush was on.
The rush was a far western rush of Oregon farmers, of local Californians, of Mexicans from Sonora, sailors jumping ship, of soldiers leaving their post, a local gold rush in '48.
In a nation where the average workman earned $1 per 12-hour day, the accounts that came back from California spread further the contagion of gold fever.
I pledge upon my sacred honor that all I state is true. The poor man, in the course of 60 days, is raised into comparative ease, and many become wealthy. All who work but from 4 to 6 hours a day have $800 to $2,000 in their possession, and many up to $10,000. Plenty for all, for years to come. J.F. Reed, 1848.
The local rush of 48 would become an international phenomenon a year later in 1849.
Do you have time for some quick cash? Things We Buy is America's premier buyer of fine timepieces. Things We Buy needs your fine wristwatches like Rolex, Patek Philippe, chronographs, and even watches that no longer keep time. The watch experts at Things We Buy will quote their top dollar and pay high prices to you